Oh my goodness. How was week one, gentlemen? We'll start with that. Right off the bat, week one with plenty of upsets, some eye-opening moments, and all the great stuff in between. Week one was awesome. So start with that. Brian McKee and Alex Renelio here. Productive Conversations NFL crew. Just as a whole, before we break down everything and have some fun with it, how'd you feel about the first week of the National Football League in 2022?
Damn, that shit was wild. A lot of close games, a lot of things coming down to kicks. So we're definitely in for quite a year of competitive football. And again, I mean, every year we get the first third of the year. All these teams don't know they're good or bad yet, so you're going to get a lot of competitive games. But the season feels a little more special. So let's get it going.
Oh yes, I know Brian feels the same way, fellow Shavy.
Yeah, I agree with Alice completely. Very unexpected. A lot of close games. I think the league may have gotten better defensively over this offseason. It's very possible. I also liked what I saw from a lot of rookies. So I'm really excited for this season.
Let's get it, gentlemen. So as we bring to you the reaction of week one, which is always a huge overreaction, but we're going to add to it, as I mentioned, going as we do these shows throughout the football season every week and trying new things and all that. We're going to introduce our new segment as well, which I will say for the end, but it's going to be called, as I said in the cold open, Upsets, Whimpers, and Thrillers, so you can assume what that is. But until then, let's break down each and every single game, all the big headlines in between, and have some fun with it. So let's start. So thanks to our good friend Dolo Ren, associate producer of this podcast who creates our reels, we have been getting some good fanfare to start it off. So I figured the first game we talk about, the huge game nationally, the Bucks and the Cowboys. Brian, put you on the spot. So when we posted our clip of you talking about the Cowboys and what's projected, that clip itself had over 5,000 real views across our social media platforms. So thank you for that. And thank you for Dolo. Now, with all those numbers, we've had some nice comments from people. And you know how internet comments are. But to give context, and for those who are watching the pod on YouTube, let me show you what may have set some people off. And we'll show some reactions to that. So this is Bryan last week on Dak Prescott and what he has to do at the beginning of this season and what he has to do to become elite.
Dak Prescott, it's time for Dak.
Whoops. Let's do that one more time. Here we go.
I think it's time for Dak Prescott to step up and become a top 7 quarterback. I won't say top 5 yet. I'll give top 7 just because some sophomore quarterbacks might just make some crazy jumps this year. A rookie quarterback like Kenny Pickett, if Trubisky does bad, could really, cause some frenzy up in the ranks the way he played in preseason. I think it's time for him to take the jump. He has no excuses anymore. He's been in the league, 5-6 years now? Mm-hmm. I think this might be his 6th season, maybe his 7th. It's time to actually show what you got. Amari's gone.
All right. So as you said, and what's fair, Dak has to show what he has. And as a result, and the first game we talked about, the Bucks played the Cowboys on Sunday night, resulting in a 19-3 victory. Dak Prescott himself went 14 for 29, only 134 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception, with a quarterback rating of just 15.3. And as Brian said, he has to step up. And literally, most of these comments happened after the game. And we've had people said to Brian, feels like Cowboy fans are less aware than any others. That's what Samuel said. We have Rich said this didn't age well. Will said, good call, laughing my ass off. And Sean Henderson said, how many thumbs down did this get? And he could go fuck himself because that's not nice to say. But Brian, it's fair to say that this didn't go as planned for the first week. As we said, week one's a big overreaction. But what do you have to say for this? A viral clip in this sense and some of the disappointing results from Sunday night, which also led to a thumb injury for Dak.
So yeah, like I always understand the Cowboy hate because we were good for a very long time, and then for the last 25 years we've been mediocre, and we've lived off the last, basically the entire beginning, middle, 3/4 of the NFL lifespan has been really Cowboys, Steelers, 49ers. Those three teams. If you could throw the Giants in and the Redskins as well, you basically cover up all the championships. Also, the Raiders can't say, all right, 6 teams. That's basically all the championships you could say in a very long time. And then the 2000s hit, and then you have Brady. So I understand the hate. When your team isn't good for its entire inception, and literally its lifespan, I get why you should hate on the Cowboys. But here's my thing. Oh, it didn't age well. I can't, Cowboys fan can't control injuries. I can't control the front office. And I think I gave a very fair take. Dak Prescott got paid to be a top 5 quarterback. He has to play like a top 5 quarterback. And I said, regardless of any of the issues around the team, such as the injured receiving core with Michael Gallup and James Washington, even with the injured and I would say free agents restricted offensive line, just because we just decided to not do anything and we actually cut 2 players. We didn't sign back Connor Williams. I mentioned all of this and I said, he's going to have to, overcome it. And what I saw even before the Dak injury, he couldn't do it. That's what I saw. I'm upset about the injury because my team is definitely not making the playoffs now because our backup is not competent enough, nor is he a qualified starting quarterback in the NFL.
No love for Cooper Rush, huh?
No love for Cooper Rush. He's only started 1 game in his career. I don't trust it. I have to see more. I just don't think he could do it. If Dak couldn't do any good with that offensive line against the Bucs, what could Cooper Rush do against a very good, formidable front against the Bengals this week? So that's my issue. I was listening to Colin Cowherd today. Dak Prescott didn't play a single preseason game. Do you know that out of all the quarterbacks, right, there was 11 that didn't play in the preseason. They went 3-8 in the first week of the NFL because there's no chemistry. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Didn't play with his rookie receiving core, and he wants to know why they didn't catch the ball and do well. There's no chemistry. There was no chemistry between CeeDee Lamb because Dak overthrew him and underthrew him. He had 11 targets. He only caught 2. There was no chemistry between Dennis Houston or the running backs out the backfield passing for Dak. So there's zero chemistry. I don't know why you'd want to go in cold with an unproven receiving core and a sketchy offensive line against the Bucs defense, which is top 5. That's, in my opinion, that falls on coaching because I bet Dak wanted to play. So yet again, that's another fail on Mike McCarthy just being an idiot. Why he has a job makes no sense. And then it goes back to the front office. We're in an O-line rebuild because of, but we should have known this. Tyron Smith hasn't been healthy since 2016. Zach Martin hurt his calf 2 years ago, and we played terrible. Terrence Steele, he only played 1 season as a starter last year, and he did okay. We got rid of our left guard. Our center is still developing. He's going to be good one day, the hope is, but it takes time at center. It's a very demanding position. And, we got rid of our right tackle who was hurt the entire year, Leo Collins, who was an undrafted free agent that should have been a first-round pick, but due to off-the-field issues, he dropped to undrafted. And he was almost a Pro Bowl caliber player. So you want to know why they're doing bad. It's that simple. They just decided to gamble on the fact that, Dak could carry everything, and obviously he couldn't.
And now he has an injured hand, not going on injured reserves. So people think he could come back within the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. But you feel, and then Alex, you could definitely chime in on this, that the NFC East is now open for grabs, even though most people predicted the Eagles as the division winners, and they did win. But as a result of this, and the Cowboys losing, is the division more susceptible for the 4 teams in there in Washington, New York, and Philly.
Yeah, no, I had our Washington Commie friends and our New York Giants right around 7-10 for the year. So I feel a lot better about that because I had them cleaning up some head-to-head games in the division this year. No, I mean, I feel great about the Eagles pick. I certainly feel even better about the 6-11 prediction for Dallas pick. And that only has a proportionate amount to do with Dak and his inability, healthy or healthy, with the injury now with the thumb. So he'll be out. I think they're saying 6 to 8 weeks with the surgery.
6 to 8 weeks, but they think he could come back in 4. In my opinion, I wouldn't rush it because you have that many years on his contract.
Hand injuries are bad.
Yeah, and
not a lot of people have come back the same from the hand injury and the back injury.
Yeah,
usually those are the real killers for careers. Not saying this is it for Dak, but keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think the team and the organization is going to look at bringing back. They're going to advise against bringing back Dak prematurely if they see that the season's going south by halfway through the season. No, I think this is runaway Eagles, and I feel better about my pick by the day. I certainly don't wish any ill upon anybody getting hurt, but I think even with Dak's injury, you're looking at a roster bereft of talent. I think that having the entire, you got holes all over the offensive line. Everybody's banged up. Outside of CD, I don't see really any offensive threat. Maybe Dalton Schultz at the middle, but I still think it's the split carries between Zeke and Pollard gives me a little pause for concern because I don't think that they've really ironed that the touches out yet. With
only 71 yards from the ground in all 4 quarters there,
and a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. But I just think that like Bryan said, it boils down to chemistry and having Dak sitting out the preseason. My guy included, Mr. Carr. He looked like shit yesterday. He looked like shit back on Sunday because he had 3 picks where it was miscommunications on routes and just gambling stupidly downfield. So I think people will need to put a reemphasis on getting reps in week 4 before the season starts at a minimum. But I feel better about the Dallas pick right now.
Yeah, the big thing here, and as we go throughout and hit on each game, this might be an example of at least play one half of your preseason. You're only having 3 games. Clearly, chemistry in football is as vital as it comes into sports and athletics. Football, you need chemistry and momentum. And, maybe this is a result of being a little too conservative there. What's up, Bryan?
I'll make one comment on this. There's only one hope for Dallas, and that's that their schedule for the next 6 games is not terrible. They play the Bengals, who really didn't play well last week. Mm-hmm. T. Higgins is hurt. So if they're going to win the Bengals, but I expect it to be a close game. They play the Giants. Could week 1 be a fluke? I don't trust Daniel Jones. Then they play Washington. Carson Wentz is hot and cold any other day. Then they play the Rams. Super Bowl hangover, or are they a good team? We still have to figure that out. Then they play the Eagles. They'll lose that game, but then they go Lions, Bears, Packers. So technically on their defense alone, they might be able to win against the Lions, Bears, and split between, the Redskins and the Giants. That's 3 wins. They lose 4. You go back with Dak at 3 and 5. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. And just focusing on the Bucks with this matchup, Tom Brady, and it was literally just reported by Page 6 that Giselle and Tom Brady are living separately. Who really cares? This is for somebody I really don't. I'm not as obsessed in celebrity culture as maybe portrayed to be, in the sense that I don't care what happens in the paparazzi, but that. Who knows how serious that is, them living separately. But regardless, it didn't seem to faze Brady at all. Throwing for 212 yards, 18 for 27 with a touchdown. Did throw a pick, but got sacked 2 times. But seemed that he was just picked up where he left off at 45 years old, especially from an incredible running game with Leonard Fournette. And some awesome plays from Mike Evans, looking good. Godwin until he got hurt. And Julio Jones, maybe he shows that he's a legit threat in throughout their weapons. So the Bucks looking like the Bucks under Todd Bowles. Do we see them just continuing to strive even with Brady's off the field news?
If anything, the off the field fuels him more. The defense, the defense played great. Sound defense. My notes for this simple. The Brady connection is great as always. You got Julio Jones, Evans, Godwin, Russell Gage, Big Lenny at running back. They just have the offense is just loaded with talent. I would like to see them get some type of a trade acquisition for a tight end to really put him over the edge, but I think they're still fine with Cameron Braid. But the defense, I honestly think that they're going to rely on the defense more this year. And I expect Todd Bowles to be a legit coach of the year candidate just based on he's the head coach. He's actually calling plays still as the defensive coordinator, technically. And they destroyed Dallas. And, Dallas isn't a good team. But in my eyes, that defense right there, that carried that team.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I think he'll be in the running, for coach of the year, just because they're down talent from last year. I mean, they made a lot of offseason changes. He's been dealing with a lot of turnover in that regard. But no, like you said, they were able to weather the storm from your guys' defense because, despite how much shit talking we do with the Cowboys offense, they have their issues. But your defense is pretty solid. Parsons, if they let him run loose and they don't have to line him up on their front four, he can really get after it, and he proved it the other night. So there was a lot to be concerned about, on the Bucs side of the ball on offense. Even with the great offensive line like they do, in front of Tom Brady, he even had his problems. So definitely kudos to Dallas in that regard. But, the Bucs are going to, we kind of talked about it, in the initial our preseason picks. I think they're going to have their issues, throughout the season. They're going to have a couple up and down weeks where they're dealing with stuff internally, kind of, buying time as long as they take care of what they need to in the division. So I think they're going to have a pretty solid season, but I like what I saw, all things considered, even, with some pass rushing concerns from Dallas. I think that it's just going to take a little time. There's going to be a lot of gelling to be going on in the first half of the season. Saw a lot of that in New England with Brady, with Belichick. They always kind of had some things to iron out in the first half of the season. So I think there'll be a lot more of that the same with Tampa Bay, but they'll be right there at the end of the season.
How about them Cowboys? They are in a bunch of trouble. Simple as that. So moving on.
Trouble.
Yup.
Take it to the East. Let's talk about New York football. First, the New York football Giants. 6 years it took them to win a week 1 game, and they pulled it off. It didn't look pretty. It really didn't, even though the game was competitive and the defense threw out. I don't know. Brian Daboll, a.k.a. Brian Dayballs, must have had one hell of a second half locker room speech. And Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley put the team on their back. Daniel Jones playing his heart out. And even when we thought, after seeing him fumble in the second half and then that really awful interception in the red zone, we thought, wow, this is really going to happen again. Time to pay more attention to Bryce Hall and the quarterback at Ohio State, because looks like we know what we're in for. Yet, guy kept his composure. Team blocked for him. The defense stepped the fuck up. I mean, did you see Tay Crowder just manhandle Derrick Henry? I literally have never seen him get tackled like that ever. And you know what? You throw to Sterling Shepard for 65 yards here. You just have Saquon making so many yards and earning his offensive player of the week. And then we score. Then do the 2-point conversion. That's successful with an awesome shovel pass to him. And then we saw something that we saw so many years prior. The penalties just killing us down the field. It wasn't Ryan Tannehill for the most part. It was us beating ourselves. And then a 57-yard field, or 47. Let me just double check the official yardage on the field kick by Ryan Bullock. Yeah, so about a 47-yard field goal, and he misses it. And you know what? A win's a win. Now, I am being realistic, not thinking about the playoffs just yet, but the momentum, the accountability that Daboll holds and his staff to this team. And you know what? The Giants won a well-deserved game. And now who knows what can happen in these next 4 games, whether against Carolina, then the Cowboys 2 weeks after that. And, the possibilities are endless. Who knows? All I'm just saying is who knows, and it's really exciting. So, yes, we go play Carolina, then Cowboys, and then we play the Bears. All home games as well. And you know what? We just have some momentum, and most importantly, just take it week by week and who knows what we could pull off, especially if Saquon's playing this well. Possibilities are endless. And I understand one thing, if this team, if Saquon's playing well, but the team isn't winning, you might want to consider trading him, but we'll worry about that next month. But for now, Giants are 1-0, and it feels pretty damn good. I'm sure you guys were just excited as I was, especially the Cowboy fan in this. But what do we think about the New York Football Giants with a huge upset against the Titans?
So I'm going to be, this is what I say, I'm a realistic Cowboy fan. I'm just a football fan. I'm very proud of the Giants. I'm very proud. This is a football fan. That just showed moxie. They just played hard-nosed football on defense, and they went to fundamentals on offense, and they relied on their strengths, which is their athleticism, and they made some plays. Did they steal a win out of it from the Titans? Absolutely. The Titans played a terrible game. I think the Titans are overrated this year. They got lucky, the Giants, because, they had the fumble and the interception. If they didn't have that, I think they would have won easily. That happens. But at the end of the day, strength of schedule, I personally think they're about to go 4-0 because I don't trust Carolina. The Cowboys are a liability. And then you said they play the Bears. They're the Bears. That's 4-0. You're in a great spot right now. The team that I can think of that benefits the most from the Dak Prescott injury is the New York Football Giants. But this season will continue to rely on health. Could your O-line stay healthy, which it struggles with? Could your running back stay healthy? Could your quarterback stay healthy? And could your wide receiver stay healthy? Your best receiver is constantly injured, Shepard. I wouldn't even put Galladay in because he's still unproven in my regards on the team. Daniel Jones is starting quarterback, always hurt. So we know about Saquon. The O-line's in a constant turnstile of switching out because of injuries. If you guys could keep a core together and get chemistry, you'll be fun.
Definitely. And yes, Kenny Galladay is nothing at this point. He's non-existent. And then we're also wondering what Kadarius Toney is. He was barely featured. According to the press conferences, there are no issues there. We don't know if it's an internal thing, but imagine if we can get our second round pick going, because he definitely has a lot of potential there. But yeah, everything else you hit on, especially with the line improving. Andrew Thomas in particular looks like he might actually be a solid pick from Gettleman, one of the very few. And then if Daniel Jones just keeps his composure and doesn't turn over the ball, and emphasize, doesn't turn over the ball, we're in it. And that's all I can ask for, just playing competitive games here on out. And then now we have some winnable games in these next few weeks. Who knows where we go from there?
Yeah, it's just about keeping the offense fundamental for Daniel Jones. I think, Daboll was brought in there because he is a wizard and what he's been able to do with Josh Allen in 3 years time. But I think that, you're not starting with the same deck every time you shuffle the cards. So I think that keeping things, dumbed down, so to speak, for Daniel Jones to really make the best of him and what he has in his capacity for the remainder of the season is definitely going to be crucial. We don't have to limit it to week 5 weeks ahead, because after the Green Bay and Ravens game, you got Jacksonville on the road, which is a very winnable game, heading up to Seattle on a slightly short week. That should be an easy game. You got Houston at home, and then you got the Lions, and then a banged up Cowboys team. So there's plenty of winnable games. I think this is a very manageable schedule, especially for a team like this that's figuring things out. But I think what you saw with the game plan with seeing Saquon healthy, as long as he can keep himself healthy and keep himself spry and ready week after week, I think that this team and this offense is going to really click over time. And I think it's because they're going to be able to keep opposing defenses on the sidelines and really play clock control. And it's going to be really crucial, especially like all the reasons that Bryan mentioned. They did a lot of great things on defense in the Tennessee game. There was not a single receiver on Tennessee that went over 70 yards. You got Derrick Henry under 100, under 4 yards a carry. So a lot of good things to see. Not quite there in terms of defense, how much I see promise in that defense yet, but you definitely see the game plan for the Giants moving forward with ball control and the offense.
And don't forget, Azeez was out, and Kevon Thibodeau, our number one pick from this past draft. And you only add to them I mean, if you can keep Derrick Henry under 100 yards rushing, that's an accomplishment. Imagine the other running backs we go up against moving forward. And let's just enjoy the ride. We play Carolina next week. And now let's talk about one of the biggest jokes in all of sports is the New York Jets franchise. I am absolutely amazed how damn foolish they look after week 1. I mean, where do we begin? First, let's talk about the game itself. The defense did hold their own against Lamar Jackson and his new receiving core, but you know what? You can't win if you can't score. Joe Flacco looks abysmal out there. You want to talk about a bad offensive line? I mean, they ate up him and that running game like it was me eating McDonald's at my fattest days. Just sloppy and disgusting and embarrassing. And you know what? I was somebody who wanted to make a change, and will this team have any cojones to do it? It doesn't seem so. Then after your terrible 24-9 loss, you go in this week with Robert Saleh just looking like a damn fool. He looks like an absolute fool in these press conferences. First, holding receipts against anybody who criticizes them, whether it's the media, whether it's a talk show, whether it's a podcast. Mr. Saleh is so embarrassed and nervous that he has to keep receipts and remember all the haters. And then just these confusing and conflicting reports about players being hurt from Zach Wilson, almost reconsidering people saying that it seems like they were considering making a quarterback change, but they announced today that Joe Flacco will start against the Browns this week. And I mean, everybody thought that this coach could have been the one that at least gives them some sort of resonance and can have the team being taken seriously. And you know what? When you say all gas, no brakes, my ass, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And you know what? In a few weeks' time, the Jets are going to have to look for another coach again and see if Zach Wilson gives any hope whatsoever. And I personally don't think so. And yeah, at this point, with the embarrassing PR and embarrassing play, the Jets go up against a Browns team that has a win, and they're trying to win their, I think, go 2-0 in some odd years for the first time in several years. And people really think that they're going to lose to a team that knows how to really embarrass themselves on a PR standpoint. So the Jets, what a joke, an absolute joke, looking like a damn fool. And I guess my first question for you guys here, after Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl MVP, plays like what bad adjective I can have, just playing like absolute garbage.
Terrible.
Are you going to be the one making the move to put Mike White in? And then tell me your answer there, and I'll tell you what some other people think regarding what that change might represent.
Well,
it doesn't matter. You go.
Oh, right. I was just gonna. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt Stephen A. Smith from talking about the disaster the Jets are just a minute ago. No, I mean when you have Joe Flacco throwing 59 times in a game, you know something didn't go right.
And you have a really sought after backfield that people are excited about, Bryce Hall, and you use him for nothing.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that's going to be like the epitome of the season, is just seeing all this promising young talent just wasted on yet another dysfunctional season. It almost feels like you've got a car that has all these problems in it, and you keep ordering parts for it, and another thing breaks down, because they have a great draft, an exceptional draft, and everybody praised them for it, including the three of us, to my recollection. But then you have an injury, weeks later to, the golden boy quarterback, and you have a dysfunctional head coaching staff who's taking receipts, which, frankly, even if I'm the tax collector, I would just chuck those receipts, because you're not going to need them when you're winning 3 games.
Can't be so sensitive. Not only, obviously not in New York, but if you're an NFL coach, you have to answer to the media.
Yeah. So I think, just to wrap things up, because there's really not a lot of highlights, rather lowlights to talk about this team, but, it doesn't even matter about the offensive woes that this team had. It looked like this defense gave up mid-third quarter last weekend. But the big issue is going through the season, I think two things can be true. I think before we, supplant Flacco and put Mike White into the conversation, which I think will be an upgrade regardless because Flacco's terrible. But I think that you're going to see a lot of production, a lot of improvement from these rookies, all the guys they drafted this past season and the year past. And if you can keep some semblance of health and show improvement and development, I would try to scrap the head coaching staff, but I would keep this unit because I think there's a lot of promising pieces on defense. And, if you can get Zach Wilson back healthy, you see what you get and make the best of it towards the end of the season.
I agree 100%. Saleh is a defensive coach. He's a defensive coordinator. Like, look at the defense looks good. Cornerbacks look good. The front line look good. Like,
yeah, Sauce Gardner looks legit.
Yeah, that's his bread and butter. And unfortunately, I don't like defensive head coaches because the offense usually suffers. You could have an offensive head coach and a good defensive coordinator, and your defense will be fine. It doesn't really work the same way the other way. The right wide receiver showed promise. The running back room is explosive in my eyes with Carter and Hall. I'm disappointed with the Jets on this reason. Why couldn't you just trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, I don't care that you wasted a first-round pick on Zach Wilson. You have a good receiver room, a good running back room, and a decent defense. You could have got yourself an average quarterback and been a mediocre team for the first time in a long time. Like, stop trying to hit home runs when you don't even have the bat yet made. It's still at the factory to hit the home run from. Just get average. That's their problem, the Jets. They try to hit big. Just get average.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of pride with Joe Douglas, and that transitions to my last point on the Jets here, right? So you have Mike White, who was awesome when Zach Wilson got hurt in his 1.5 games he played, right? And he defeated the AFC champions. Now, there's a legit theory, and I don't know if this was just hogwash from Jets Twitter or whatever, but some people really believe the reason why Mike White isn't starting is because they don't want to have either a quarterback battle between him and Zach Wilson. You pick him second overall, and then you have this guy who wasn't drafted by Douglas, just picked up off the waivers from the Dallas Cowboys. And some people legitimately feel that Mike White may straight up be better than Zach Wilson. And if that's the case, Joe Douglas should not be a GM because he completely doesn't acknowledge that he's the better option. And they should have, got whether getting another offensive tackle, which clearly is what they need, and vice versa. And people really believe that Mike White is being held back because they don't want to look like fools if he's genuinely better than him. And they've never had a legitimate battle when they were both healthy at the same time. And now, well,
but here's the thing, Matt. You can have that internal battle for the Jets, but you're only shooting yourself in the foot because if you actually have some kind of trade asset value, you better find out about it now because you got to get talent in exchange for Mike White. So if you don't want to have a QB controversy, you're all in on Zach Wilson, which I think any smart organization in their right mind would put all their chips on the high draft pick they got. Even if you have talent in Mike White, get off him while sell high. You always sell high.
And you have enough time to do it. It's only week 2, but yet you're playing Joe Flacco, who seems he's had a great career. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he's had a great NFL career. He's made over $150 million. And you got
to salvage. You got to show this organization's fans. You got to show them that you actually give a shit about the season, and you're not going to throw another one away by playing Joe Flacco.
At least Mike White's exciting. At least Mike White's exciting. Like that. Like
Mike
White. That's a media thing. Like use Mike White. He could throw 8 and 10 picks. He could throw for 400 yards. Yeah, he could throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Jets will figure out a way to lose the game, so it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they need to do the right thing when it's early enough to do this kind of experimenting. And well, because Robert Saleh doesn't seem to be confident in his decisions, ultimately, I think they're just gonna let this ride out. I mean, some people say that if they have a bad first half, Myles Garrett makes the Jets quarterback his daddy. Do you go in and, put somebody else in? You put Mike White in then? I don't know. But ultimately, if you just want this to be another example of another bad head coach coming in, another GM he'll probably be on his way out, coming in and getting out, and then just start this cycle once again. And the only other thing I can say, and I don't know how legitimate this is here on Mike Frances's podcast, that there are rumblings amongst the NFL owners that Woody Johnson is ready to sell the Jets. I don't know how legitimate that is. I didn't really see that picked up anywhere else, but it seems to only make sense at this point. Get your few $1 billion you will for selling the Jets, and see if they'll hire the right people. It's worked for the Mets. It's worked for the Mets if you're talking about changing ownership and how much that really enlightens a franchise. Can the Jets do the same? I don't know. It was literally just rumblings. I didn't even find an article on it, but Woody Johnson, maybe he'll sell the Jets and maybe then they'll finally figure it out.
Just don't let James Dolan buy it.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's got enough problems to deal with. Can't wait to get into him later on in a few months, probably. Let's talk about the Chargers and the Raiders. Chargers won a tight one against Las Vegas. The defense looked pretty dominant on the Chargers side for the Chargers, especially Khalil Mack, looking like the old Khalil Mack. Despite a nail biter, Raiders did put up a fight, and Derek Carr and Davante Adams look like they could be a legitimate dynamic duo. So we will toss it over to the Raiders fan himself. Evaluate this game for us, please.
Oh man, I think I had like 2 strokes and a heart attack during the same game. No, I was super excited at the outset. The energy was electric. It looked like a freaking home game if you pan the crowd a few times.
That's sad.
Yeah, no, I expected that. It's not only the fact that we're in the same vicinity as our own hometown, which I still call them the Oakland Raiders, by the way, but it's the fact that Chargers have no fans, which is sad because Herbert deserves better than that.
Yeah, right.
But it was a great game. A lot of electricity, no pun intended. But I think the big takeaways is that what you got a glimpse of immediately right off the bat is there's really something special going on with Carr and Devontae. Just saw a glimpse of it, but 10 receptions, $140. I mean, this is going to be really something wild to see as the AFC West continues to move on. We'll definitely see how Thursday night's game goes with Chargers Chiefs. That's going to be a great head-to-head to kind of continue the saga in the division. But I saw a lot of great things on both sides of the ball. Mad Max was a monster. Max Crosby was a monster. I thought Chandler Jones played a conservative game. I didn't really hear his name called until late in the third quarter. So that definitely concerns me a little bit, something to keep an eye on. But, I saw a lot of great things. Kudos to the Chargers because even though I hate them, they've always been the silent rival, not the big ones making names, always out of the playoffs. But Herbert was a monster. 3 TDs, 280, 26 and 34. Eckler was a beast on the ground. He's going to have a monster year too. The only thing that sucks is they lost Keenan Allen. I expect anybody who's in fantasy to check out the waiver wire with Everett and and DeAndre Carter. But it was a great game. It was really exciting a while. I don't think the score really told the whole story, but it's going to be interesting to see how this Chargers team continues to ascend because I know what I'm getting with my team, and they got to cut down on the turnovers. But this Chargers team really looks special.
Now,
great game. I was just gonna say
saying?
I don't have that much to say about it except great game. Both offenses look really good. Raiders need to step up on defense more because I think that's always going to be the weak point for them this season. But if you just see a little bit, they see an average defense on that side of the ball. I think they have a lot of promise.
All right, and is Davante Adams gonna have 50 touchdowns? Is he gonna have 100 touchdowns with Derek Carr? I mean, he was on a very good defense. Reckon they did have a few injuries on on their secondary, but he still was being Devontae Adams. Are we expecting to see this be one of the best duos in the NFL this year? If that showed us anything.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Keep it nice and sweet, short and sweet.
Love
I
it.
think, in all seriousness, I think they'll probably connect for around 12, 15 touchdowns for the year if I'm going to be really objective here, but it's going to be wild to watch.
Great. Okay. So why don't we talk about the opening matchup, the Bills and the Rams? Well, as we said, people think that the Bills are legitimately a perfect football team. On the offense, on the defense, on the special teams, on the coaching staff, their mascot, their fan base, the Bills go up against the reigning champs in the Rams, and they did not hold up their end of the bargain, except Cooper Kupp was looking like Cooper Kupp. Now, I think the Bills are just going to continue their tour of dominance, but do we see the Rams have any concern and are suffering from the Super Bowl hangover, as people like to say it?
So Rams should be worried in my eyes because I just don't think Stafford's elbow is good enough yet right now. I wish he took a game or two off. Just the way his throwing mechanics were, I just didn't like it. The defense looks a little shaky. Jalen Ramsey got torched by Stephon Diggs, who, Stephon Diggs is probably, he's a top 5, top 10 receiver in the league, but, Jalen Ramsey should be the best cornerback in the league. So it's just, it was a little eye-opening. So I would be a little worried. But yet again, it's only game 1. Bills, most complete team in football. The only negative, as I said in the preseason, in the the full pod we did last week, the running back room is the weakest point of their team, in my opinion. The running, I like Singletary. I need to see him hit 1,000 yards. He hasn't done it yet. James Cook fumbled. That's a team that, around the trade deadline, I might have to call some people up and try to get some players. If that's a team, I might call, the Jets and be like Michael Carter. You have Breece Hall. Can I grab Carter? That's where I see if the passing game ever gets shut down. I just don't think the running game could actually hold it up for them. So that's my worry for them.
Okay.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that the weakest point of this offense is the running backs room. I think they'll probably make a few calls around the deadline. I think, Singletary can, he's not quite a bell cow, but he'll get you 60% of the runs, and they'll probably, run some read options with Josh Allen, but they're going to try to preserve him ultimately for the remainder of the season. I really saw no chinks in the armor with this team. I'm far more concerned with the Rams. I have a lot of premature questions kind of brewing, and a lot of it, stems from the health of the team, but definitely seeing Ramsey get burned on some of those plays was eye-opening too. I think it could just be a little bit of a hangover. I think they'll correct it halfway through the season. I think they just looked a few steps slow opening night.
Hear that. So let's talk about one of my favorite people to talk about and his team, Aaron Rodgers. Lose to the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe this shows that if you just rest and be chill, sleeping on Tempur-Pedics over the week, as allegedly it was reported out of the Vikings camp that they were very relaxed going up against Green Bay. And you know what? You stayed dominant. Justin Jefferson, 184 yards, 11 catches. I mean, my goodness. You have Kirk Cousins, pretty solid, 277 yards and a couple of touchdowns there. Even Dalvin Cook, just hit 90 yards, but 20 carries. I mean, they were putting in work. And the big thing people notice, Aaron Rodgers and the chemistry with his receivers did not look like it was there whatsoever. And he had Allen Lazard, his number one, not playing. And his final total is 22 for 34 with 195 yards and an interception. Now, my thing here is Rodgers has been notorious with playing bad during the first week of the season. He went 0-1 to start both last year and the year before, and he won the MVP. Personally, I think this is just his way of I think personally, I just think don't worry, don't overreact. Now the Vikings are a good team, especially on the offensive side, and even with their upgrades on defense, I think you shouldn't really have to worry about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I think he's just somebody who is better as he progresses throughout the season. And I mean, even what was it last year that people thought he was even throwing some of the games when he was up for a new contract? I don't think that's the case. I don't know, but Aaron Rodgers is always fascinating to me on a lot of good podcasts this past week. If you like him on Bill Maher, which was awesome, and then Caleb from Barstool, which was hilarious. Aaron Rodgers, I think, will be fine moving forward. Do you guys think the same?
I think he's going to be fine. I just think that they might end up losing the first few. They might, have a struggle or lose the first few games because of the lack of chemistry. I'll start with the defense. The front seven looked good, but the secondary got burned. There's no reason why Jair Alexander wasn't guarding Jefferson the whole game. The fact that they kept on switching different looks up at Jefferson instead of just sticking to probably a top 5 cornerback in the league makes no sense to me. The O-line held up well, I thought, but there's no chemistry. Aaron Rodgers, in my personal opinion, I think if you put Jordan Love out there, Jordan Love would have had a better game than Aaron Rodgers because of chemistry. I think that I'm really a proponent of quarterbacks playing in the preseason, especially when you have 2 rookie starting receivers. And, I think there is going to be a difference in the last 2 years. The last 2 years they had Devontae Adams. And that's like, that in my eyes is like the Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett. Russell Wilson didn't need to play in preseason. Every year after year, he could hit Tyler Lockett and Doug Baldwin because he knew the timing for them. Aaron Rodgers, especially in this offense, right? Aaron Rodgers grew up in a West Coast offense. This is not a West Coast offense. There's a lot more timing in this offense, and it's gone. There's no timing. You know what I mean? Like there's no timing, personal timing for him and his receivers. I was watching Romeo Doubs try to do a back shoulder catch, and he cut. You could just tell he stopped 2 steps shorter than Aaron wanted, and he overthrew him. It's just things that are going to take a long, not a long time, but a while for them to develop. So I could see this being a lost year and maybe not like a wild card team, but not deep playoffs just because of the lack of chemistry.
Yeah.
The only thing, my only contrary to that is Rodgers throughout his career, despite not winning the big game, has made it work with various receivers. And not a lot of quarterbacks can say that. Like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are one of the couple that can. He's made it work with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and obviously Devontae Adams and so on and so forth. If this is his biggest challenge, making these receivers work, okay, but I think that's something to consider, that Rodgers is one of those special quarterbacks, can make any receiver look awesome.
I'll say one thing to that, though. You got to remember in his early years, he always had a veteran receiver with him, Greg Jennings. I think he, you know what I mean? Like then eventually Jordy Nelson, then Randall Cobb. And those were, when they were in their prime, they were good. They were perennial Pro Bowlers. Was Jordy Nelson when he was healthy, and Randall Cobb was always touching Pro Bowl numbers. And then Devontae, and then you could, you know what I mean? Like they always had people, like, you know what I mean? They had I can't remember the tight end that was really good back then. I can't think of his name, but he was phenomenal too. On those teams, like he always had people. This is a completely unproven roster at receiver.
Yeah,
if you have Sammy Watkins on his 16 probably.
Yeah. And the thing too is, like, if you're exiting last season and you took a poll from those fans, I'm sure they would have and voice grave concerns about moving that offense because, I understand there was weather, involved with the San Francisco game, but that team could not move the ball for a team that's prized upon its ability to have a high-speed offense. So if you come into the season with that and you already have these moving parts, you have, shifts on the offensive line, you lose your best receiver. This is not the usual offseason where Aaron gets to come in flippantly on his own time. You got to get those reps in, like you said, Bryan, with the new roster, these new offensive pieces. And that was always Aaron's criticism of the organization as it passes. He was always skeptical of not having their best interest at heart because they weren't consistently drafting for the here and now, getting him weapons in the draft. and they finally did, and he takes the whole summer off. So I definitely think that was a huge issue. But we saw Aaron stumble out of the gates last year in the first week of the season for the New Orleans game. So I think they'll turn it around. I'm not as down on this team immediately, but they're definitely going to have their fair share of issues this season.
Yeah. I guess my only other contrary to that is let's just see how the next few weeks unfold, because it is just the first week of the season.
Yeah.
And yes, when we record this during week 4 and this is the same, then your points are definitely valid, but we will see what happens moving forward. However, let's talk about something that seems blatantly obvious, and that may lead to a quarterback change if he plays like this next week as well. As Joe Flacco was a veteran looking awful and not progressing his team, let's talk about the second-year quarterback and Trey Lance doing it for the 49ers. On a very winnable game, wrecking on the road on a game that they should have won ultimately. Trey Lance, with a quarterback rating of only 43, a 46% completion percentage, 164 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. This was as sloppy as Soldier Field was against the Bears this past week. Deebo Samuel had to do Deebo Samuel things, and ultimately he can't rush every single play, but I reckon it was very, very, it almost looked straight up dangerous to play him at Soldier Field on Sunday afternoon. The 49ers fall to the Bears by a score of 19-10, and Justin Fields looking really good, throwing 2 touchdowns there as well. So is it time to bench Trey Lance already, or do we let the rookie keep playing on?
I think you got to let him play another game. That weather sucked. You can't really judge a player in their first game based on that kind of weather. I think, Fields just got lucky with some blown coverages on those 2 touchdowns, probably also because of the weather in itself with some slippage and, not having traction with some cleats. But I want to see at least one more game, 2 more games, 3 games is what I would say. I would give Trey Lance for the 49ers before I start putting in Jimmy G, because then you're risking playoffs. You got the injury of the running back Mitchell, so that's going to be tough. But you have Deebo and Jeff Wilson behind him, so hopefully they could, that won't be that big of a hit. But in my eyes, you got to give him 2 more games just to see what's up.
Yeah, and the big difference is Joe Flacco clearly is at the end of his career, while Trey Lance is at the start when we compare people who should make immediate quarterback changes. I think that has to be addressed, and I don't disagree with you on that front. But does Alex feel like they should make the change? He can answer right now.
Well, I think it's kind of hypocritical to draft a guy and say that his biggest flaw is not having enough reps just to pull him after 1 week. And, to Bryan's point, it's how are you going to judge a first game guy in horrible, shitty, rainy weather in Chicago? I mean, Chicago's bad enough if you're not on the field and you're just walking through the city. But if you got a downpour slip and slide on Soldier Field, I don't think so. I think you give him about a 6-week leash, because there's a lot of winnable games in there. You got Carolina week 4. You got the Atlanta game, and then I would probably make a decision ahead of the October 23rd against the Chiefs game. I think you could probably go 6 games. You don't have to win. I think if you go even 3-3, or you keep it close with the Rams game in week 4, I think that's a fair judgment time and turnaround for Trey Lance. If you feel like you're Kyle Shanahan and you don't have enough faith in Kansas City moving forward, then I would probably insert Jimmy G. But even with that said, if you decide to change gears, go back to Jimmy G sooner than later, that I would still continue to try to keep Trey Lance in the fold on the offense and try to use him in some special routes and some kind of defensive tactics, because if Kyle Shanahan is the offensive coordinator and the guru that he says, he could find a place for him on this roster and this offense, because I think whatever you do, however you utilize him, you need to get him reps no matter what.
Womp, womp, womp. So the next batch of games to discuss have something in common. The kickers played a huge part in it. Whether it's the Steelers and Bengals, McPherson comes up short for the first time in his career as missing a field goal in overtime, while Boswell for the Steelers makes it. Colts and Texans end in a tie. Blankenship goes wide right on a 42-yarder with 2 minutes left in overtime, gets weighed after. Then you had Monday night where McManus misses a 64-yarder for Denver, yet people question Nathaniel Hackett's clock management and not giving Russell Wilson a chance to at least get a better field goal, to get in better field goal range for the Denver Broncos towards the end of the game on Monday night. Plus, we have the Falcons blowing big leads as usual. Then they did it once again. And this time you can account for Wilson. You could account for Will Lutz scoring a 51-yarder. So 4 games right there, all decided from the kick. One thing to always remember, you can't take the foot out of football. And it's not automatic anymore. Simple as that. I mean, when we were growing up, it seemed that they can make anything, but that's not the case anymore. And having said that, Bryan, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about the weight of all this pressure and stuff going on for the kicker? And you never know if it's going to work out or not. And, a game we already talked about with the Giants, the same thing. It was actually a 42-yarder, and I really thought Bullock was going to make it, and he didn't. But a lot of games living by the foot. So,
Yeah.
Damn, what do you think about that?
It's one of the hardest positions in the league because you don't get that many reps in game. You know what I mean? Like, you got to constantly be warmed up and loose. There's nerves. When you do have to go kick, it's usually in crunch time in a very drastic situation where you need those points. It's probably the most demoralized position in all of football, because if you do bad, everyone boos. Yeah, it's as thankless as it gets. And it's just what it comes down to. It's a tough position. There's not a lot. The transition from college to NFL for kicking is very hard. It's very hard. If it was that easy, you would draft kickers. You don't draft kickers.
Yeah,
you rarely draft a kicker. I think the Bucks did it with a 3rd-round pick, and he was terrible a couple of years ago. Roberto Aguayo. I think his name was Roberto Aguayo or something like that. I just want to talk about the Denver one quick. Like, that was dumb to me. Like, 64 yards is very hard. Like,
would have broke a record.
Would have broke it. It was the second one. He has
second
the first.
64 yards.
He has the first, but it's just like, you just paid a guy $200 million. It's like 50. You have 50 seconds and change, right? So if you snap the ball with like 54 seconds, you do a 5 yards. You do short routes. That's 5 seconds off. All right. If you don't get it, it's 50 seconds left. All right. And you have 3 timeouts left. They had 3 timeouts. You know what I mean? You could have called 3 timeouts or 2 timeouts even, right? And it would have ran to 10 seconds left. You get the kick return, fair catch. You have 10 seconds left with 1 timeout left. You can do a junk play, try to get as much yards as you can, call a timeout with 1 second left, and a Hail Mary if you had to do it. Like, the kick in there with that situation, especially with the momentum, like, Seattle had all that momentum that game. Like, Geno Smith balled out. Let's call it the way it is. Like, talk about the biggest thriller of the week was Geno Smith in Seattle. You got to go for it.
Absolutely unacceptable. And don't give him a pass because he's a first-year head coach. You got to give Russell Wilson the ball at this point. And, well, now you look like a damn fool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would still put some of the blame at the coaching staff's feet, but yeah, this is why you pay Russell Wilson $200 million. You got plenty of time to operate, despite what people say. Like you guys said, there's a few downs. You got timeouts to work with. This is what you pay him for, and they could have at least spared that kicker. The embarrassment of pushing a 64-yarder, because we know that's no walk in the park. It would have been a record, obviously. I think all 3 kicks, more or less the Blankenship kick, and the Pittsburgh game with McPherson's kick, they're all consequential for their own separate reasons. I think that was definitely a layup for Cincinnati that they kind of lost the opportunity on. claiming a very easy divisional game at home. I felt like they had a little bit of Super Bowl hangover. And I think for Indianapolis, too, another divisional layup game that they should have taken home to victory as well, because this is going to be a very weak division in the AFC South, but you have to take gimmies where they come. And I thought that Matt Ryan didn't play a great game, but I thought their defense played well enough to keep them in a game where they could have taken that home. So I think all three kicks were very consequential in their own right. I think it was more cinematic and more a microcosm of the season that Seattle was going to have versus had last night. The fact that Denver didn't take that win home, but I think ultimately Denver will probably be the best out of the three moving forward the next fall, coming back from that type of loss. So
Yeah, I agree. And McManus is a good kicker. He had the distance. It's just
absolutely.
as you know, it just went wide right.
It happens.
And
laces out.
Yeah, it laces out. And also with the back to the Colts and Texans, you had it when the Texans were at midfield in overtime and had 4th and 5. They decided, Lovie Smith decides to punt, and when asked, he said, well, I didn't want to lose. So they were still nervous that Matt Ryan could get him back in the field goal range. And as you said, a pretty mixed game for him. But at that point, you just need some yards. I think you can trust him when you have people like Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman on your side. So very interesting, and something to really pay attention to is how the kickers play throughout, because this has been going on for a few years, them not being automatic anymore, or as they used to be. So,
I think it's very resemblant of golf, because I've always been the first critic out front bashing golf and shit talking it for the lack of athleticism, but it really is all mental, and you don't really you can't supplant the reps that you do on a country club with the real PGA Tour, and
even though some people think that they can.
Well, yeah, because it's like, oh, you're doing the same thing. It's all mechanistic swinging the club, but it's like, no, it's not. You have fans around, you have huge crowds, you have all the pressure, and you see guys holes and holes up ahead of you on the course or behind you that you have to think about in the scorecard. So I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's very comparable to what these kickers are going through mentally.
Interesting takes, boys. Interesting takes. So we had the Chiefs and the Cardinals, which I think is the most overrated game. Now, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, getting 5 touchdowns. And they just absolutely beat down this very old and I think lost Arizona team. Now, I'm not taking anything away from that. And Mahomes, anything the media loves this guy. This guy saved a cat from a tree, that'd be the biggest news of the week. People love Mahomes. Now, he backed it up, and I mean, he was stellar. But I remember who you were playing, an Arizona team, as we talked about, looks absolutely like a mess, and very, very bad defense, and a very old defense. And they lost a lot of key players on it. Chandler Jones, for instance. And though you can always get excited, and when you have your guys playing, especially the big thing to take away is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was not looking good last season. He did get a touchdown and, ran for some solid yardage moving forward. But, I think, yes, the Chiefs are going to be a good team this season, but let's see how they play on Thursday night. And, Patrick Mahomes, anyone could beat down that Cardinals team that seems really lost, especially in the secondary. I mean, there is just so many people who were open, and like these receivers were just making them look silly at some point. So do we think that Patrick Mahomes can average this type of performance moving forward? Or do you guys agree with me too, that they just took advantage of an opponent that seems really weak?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, it's Mahomes. So, any given Sunday, he could put up 5 TDs. But he's also the guy that could put up 5 interceptions. It's like Peyton Manning. Like, it's, Peyton Manning or Brett Favre, gunslingers, but, they end up throwing interceptions. It happens. Receiving core, I had worries about before in the offseason. I don't anymore. They look solid. they have veterans. That's, you know what I mean? They have a team of veterans at receiver. And that's honestly like Pat Mahomes' best friend, you know, best thing going for him, best friend. Travis Kelce's, you know, still Travis Kelce. So only thing I really worry about the Chiefs really is just the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did let 41 points, 21 points against this Cardinals team, but even with overrated Kyler Murray, but he's definitely happy he has Hollywood Brown on. He had a great game.
Well, yeah, and Matt, if you look at the quarters of competitive play, a lot of those 14 of the 21 for Arizona was in the fourth quarter when the game was entirely out of hand too. So I'm even less concerned than you are about this defense, Bryan, if we're looking objectively at the Chiefs moving forward for the season. But I mean, I had the Cardinals sneaking in at the last second as the 7th seed in the NFC just by virtue of the conference having a bad down year once again. So I think that's more of just a byproduct of the conference being a little weaker than the AFC. But yeah, Arizona's got their problems. They're going to have it's going to be tough sledding this year. When when you have James Conner as your third best running back in production last weekend, you got a problem, especially for what they had to do to bring him over a season ago. But I think that they have a lot of problems until DeAndre Hopkins gets back. And even when he does, he comes back, he's going to be commanding double teams. I have really zero concern with Kansas City. While I had them as the third team out of that division, and in the wild card situation, I had them the second or third wild card. I think it's just because that they do have a tough schedule, and I think that there's going to be a little bit of progression throughout the middle of the season. They're going to be taking it a little easier week to week with health concerns, but yeah, I mean, everybody was electric. Like Smith-Schuster had a great game. Kelce commanded, and he still prevailed, had a lot of yardage. This team is going to be hot, but it's just another walk in the day in the park for Pat Mahomes. I hate saying it.
Well, I think Thursday night will be a big test for Mahomes and the Chiefs. So, Baker Mayfield's revenge game comes up short. The Browns defeat the Browns defeat the pair.
You got it.
You know, sorry. All right, the Browns defeated the Carolina Panthers 26-24. At first, it seemed that the Browns, this was their game to absolutely take over. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were fucking scary out there. I mean, let's look at it. 217 yards together. Just 180 yards between Chubb and Hunt alone. Jacoby Brissett played so, but he kept the team in there. And then after the Panthers did fight back, you think Baker Mayfield, if he allegedly told that reporter that he's going to fuck the team up, even though I don't think that was true, but ultimately he did come up short, 16 for 27 with 235 yards in total with a touchdown and pick. And then we had Christian McCaffrey not being Christian McCaffrey, 10 carries with just 33 yards. And despite Robbie Anderson, the other receivers did not pick up big numbers for Baker. But yet, game was competitive. Another field goal helped establish what was going on. And ultimately, the Browns run away with it. What do we think about this game? No injuries were reported, by the way. I think those are one of the few. And no one got hurt, and we love to see that. But again, also with a big field goal, 58-yarder for York, the Browns pull it off.
It's the Browns. Like, I think they're gonna go throughout this season of around 500 until Deshaun gets back. But Brissett just has to game manage like he did. And that running game is just so unstoppable that, in my opinion, that's, both of those guys need to get 20 carries a game. It's what I feel. Okay, you don't need to throw the ball. I feel bad for Amari Cooper because he's not going to get the yardage he deserves, but give those boys 15, 20 carries each. Let them run. Your defense, front seven, and cornerbacks are good. Let them play and hold on to a lead like that. Clock management and good defense should bring these guys through through the season. And with the Panthers, they show me some glimpses. I just think Baker might need a little bit more time in that system to get a little more comfortable. So I think by week 3, we might see the real true definition of Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, presents a competent backup, like you said, Bryan, to the capacity that he's involved in this offense. It's still going to be, running through Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I think there's a lot of nice things that you could take advantage of moving forward, especially, a few dual tight end sets. You could have Njoku on a lot of this stuff, especially with the Jets game, because the Jets do have a pretty solid defensive front four for what it's worth. But, there'll be a few winnable games that they're, competitive in with the Steelers and the Falcons game and, even maybe the New England game in week 6. So, we'll see. But I think that they're going to get slammed from there. They got Ravens, Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Bucks. It's going to be tough sledding until Deshaun gets back. So I have them competitive, but they definitely seem like they have a formula for the ground game and keeping things close, because I'm not going to take too much stake in a win over Carolina, but I was definitely disappointed in the fact that Carolina didn't take advantage of the revenge mindset from Baker. So that was kind of what it was.
Womp womp. Well, we'll see if Baker tries to get his first win against the Giants this Sunday. So a high scoring game. I hope you bet the over. Eagles and Lions 38-35. And it seems like the Eagles were really dominating on both sides of the ball. We had James Bradbury have a pick 6. Jalen Hurts was unbelievable. Despite no touchdowns, 243 total yards. They go at 18 for 32. Miles Sanders running in for touchdowns and vice versa after that. But the Lions did put a fight, especially at the end. Amon-Ra St. Brown making a case that he's the next one as one of the solid wide receivers in this league, part of the St. Brown brotherhood there. And DJ Clark looks like he could be a legit receiver in this league as well. And if Jared Goff can just hold his own being a quarterback against a very, very good defense like the Eagles, maybe the Lions are better than we think, and that's what we discussed. But what did you guys take out of this game?
I see the Eagles being NFC favorites if they continue on this path. They just built too good. They're the Bills of the NFC in the words of just a complete football team.
You really think so? Why is that?
I just don't see weakness. I don't see any weaknesses in their positions. The cornerbacks, the weakest position for them is safety, and it's an average safety group. It's not a bad safety group. So they're fine at safety. They're great at cornerback. Linebacker core in front, and the front four are great. The offensive line is probably top 3. The receiving core is ridiculous. The running back room, if healthy, is good, and the quarterback is, a fantasy dream. And if he stays accurate, they're gonna go places. So that's good. And in my eyes, the Lions know how to play football again. They came back. They're a team that I could see pushing every single game to almost winning. I see them after this game. I see them closer to 500 than I had before.
Yeah, I got them 7 wins, but I think even the chasm between 7 wins and 10 wins per se is not far off. I think they're going to be competitive in a lot of these games. Definitely like what I saw with Jared Goff, even playing from behind in a deficit, they kept that game close. But I mean, like you said, Bryan, the only thing I'm short of anointing the Eagles as prohibitive NFC champs is the fact that I do have some questions about Jalen Hurts. I mean, they are stout on offense. They got a phenomenal run game. I just want to see a little bit of more promise through the air with the weapons they have in Goddard, Devontae, and, to a lesser degree, some of the screen option stuff they want to do with Gainwell and Sanders. I think that they could diversify some of that play call a little bit on the receiving end of things, but once I see that, I think a lot of that stuff will sure up and they'll be there right at the end of the year. I love this game. Was probably one of the most exciting games if you had the game on from beginning to end, and it's gonna be interesting to watch the Eagles game next week. I think they're playing Minnesota, right?
Yeah,
that's gonna be a great game. So
Monday night. So this was quite this was quite a show, for lack of a better word. You had the Commanders defeating the Jaguars 28-22. Carson Wentz has consecutive interceptions at this game, and after that, scores 4 unanswered touchdowns, and they pull off the victory against a young Jaguars team. I mean, you literally saw Carson Wentz at one point literally throw to ghost. Like, what is he doing with some of the decision making? But especially the young son hero and Antonio Gibson, trying to be, looks like he is another one who could be a hybrid as a receiver and running back. The Commanders pull it off. And if Carson Wentz just plays like that, and especially reduces the turnovers, why can't this Commanders team be competitive, especially under Ron Rivera, who I think played a huge role as the coach in this victory? And for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence started his sophomore year playing okay, throws a touchdown, throws a pick. Travis Etienne seemed to the big draft pick in the first round didn't really seem to be stellar in his debut. He is sharing carries, but I do think down the line he will get a bulk of them. What are you going to do? He's a rookie. But Jaguars and Commanders, interesting game. Do you guys feel the same way?
I thought this game was unwatchable. Unfortunately, don't really have any investment.
There definitely was some sloppy play throughout, but do you feel at least, especially in the fourth quarter as they were going back and forth, did you find that interesting at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, whenever games tighten like this around the end of the fourth quarter, it's always exciting. It was a cool comeback story for the commies. That was definitely kind of cool. I still have the Commanders around the middle of the pack, regarding this division and the whole NFC, because I just have too many questions about Carson Wentz, and I think that definitely reared its ugly head at the beginning of the game. Like you said, he kind of second guessed himself still seeing ghosts. I think that the season's going to lie on his shoulders, and unfortunately, I don't think he has the fortitude to bear it. But I did see a lot of things I liked on offense that were surprising from the Commanders, because I think that they definitely exceeded expectations in my eyes. I thought this was really like a one-man band with McLaurin, so that it was nice to see other guys involved. Jags, I mean, they are what they are. They're going to blow a lot of late games, so just get used to it.
Yeah, I agree completely. These teams on offense are going to go as far as both quarterbacks. I think they're both average. I don't really see the hype in Trevor Lawrence yet. After the college transition, Carson Wentz, it's Carson Wentz, but like they have play, these are teams where after this year they might be thinking veteran quarterbacks just because of the talent that they have at the receiving core for both teams and in the running back room.
You're saying, wait, can you repeat that again? Who would consider the veteran?
I would say after the season, if both quarterbacks don't play as they should, to the hype they have, I could see Jacksonville and the Commanders looking for another veteran quarterback, besides Carson Wentz, or a veteran quarterback to supplement the rookie Trevor Lawrence, because these skill positions on both teams are too good to not put up significant points, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely Wentz is on his last life here. On his third team. Not a lot of people get a start for 3 different franchises. And with Trevor Lawrence, this guy really did have a really good rookie year, as best as you can, without being the rookie of the year, in the sense that he played every game. He didn't complain. Was he stellar? Was he absolutely incredible? No, but for a guy who, didn't lose a game at all in high school and college and probably Pee Wee, this guy, I think that this is a year for Trevor Lawrence to step up, and if he doesn't, then we'll see we will see evaluate towards the end of the season. But he has a good coach, and I think that this would be the time to prove that he's got something. And the media isn't as hard on him as maybe some other sophomore quarterbacks, but we'll ultimately see where it goes.
they've adjusted their expectations, the media.
Right.
Yeah.
So, last game to discuss before we get into our new segment here. The Mike McDaniel era starts with a win over Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. And how can you not like their defense, especially? Tua has an awesome game. Has an awesome game, for instance. We have, like I said, the defense. When your defense scores touchdowns, you can't complain there. Mac Jones, despite getting injured towards the end, did not play well at all. The rushing game was non-existent. And the Dolphins really, really looked good. And I'm just pretty impressed for what I saw. Reckon they are playing a Patriot team that seems to be on the back nine of their success. If you beat Bill Belichick, you beat Bill Belichick, especially for the rookie head coach. You are as excited as I am for the Dolphins. Now, we said they could be a sleeper team moving forward, and this was a great first game to prove that. Do we feel that this is going to be a continuation moving forward for the Dolphins, or is it more of a one-off and they got lucky?
Dolphins are a playoff team, no doubt in my mind. That receiving core is too good.
Yep, Tyreek killed it.
Yeah, 94 yards. Waddle is ridiculous. Gesicki is a top 10 tight end in my eyes. Running back room by committee is they're the 49ers. They're the 49ers with a little more proven Trey Lance. That's the way I think about it. That's really the way I think about it. Defense is
just short
like
of 300 yards.
Yeah, listen, they have potential. And with the Patriots, they're old. Like I said in the preseason, previews, the defense is old. They got exposed. Matt Jones plays like a stiff board, so it makes sense that his back is fucked up. And we got to see what happens. It's gonna be like a 6-win, 5-win Patriots team this year. It is what it is.
One thing we didn't discuss in our preview, but when you have Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, two failed coaches in this league over the past couple of years, leading your offense, what do you expect?
Yeah, no, I had great concerns with that offense coming into this season. But yeah, no, I liked a lot. Like Bryan said, I liked a lot of things that Miami did week one with the offense. Tua looks a lot more comfortable, under Mike McDaniel's roster. I like, Tyreek's explosive. He's going to be him. Waddle looked phenomenal. I don't know. The energy was just better. I think that there was just so much more promise in the stadium. Everybody seemed alive and really wanted to, root this team on. It felt like a new regime was in town, and for all the right reasons. Gesicki, like you said, Bryan, top 10 easily. And I like some of the pieces that they have on defense. Again, you have to kind of grade them on a curve because they're playing an offense that, can't move a dog turd off the field. So, you have to grade them definitely on a curve for week one, but I think they'll be there right up until week 18, fighting for that last playoff spot. And we'll have to check in mid-season and see where they're at.
They play happy. That's what I like. They play happy.
How could you not with that awesome coach? I mean, I don't know the guy, but he just seems like he brings some good vibes. And
you need a wheelbarrow for him. You heard?
Exactly. Going on fourth down for there, as Tyreek said, you need to bring a wheelbarrow to bring those big balls. And I like this new transition of coaches going on fourth down more. And this is just another example of it. And it worked out. And
I think Mike McDaniel could be upgraded to grill master for the parking lot too.
Oh man, What a joke that turned out to be. When you tailgate and you leave the grills on, what do you expect? And
irresponsible people.
Florida is in the building.
Mm-hmm. But also real highlights, Melvin Ingram, who was picked up in the offseason for the Dolphins, playing an awesome linebacker, and he scored. And their second round pick last year, and Brandon Jones gets a strip sack off of Mac Jones. The Dolphins look like that they could really compete. Reckon and the theme, it is the first week, a week of overreactions, but this team seems very well balanced. All right, gentlemen, we're going to start a new segment. As I mentioned to you all before, for the first time, we are introducing to you upsets, whimpers, and thrillers. So every single radio show, every single podcast, every single sports talk show, YouTube show, the guy you talk to in your office, the guy you talk to at the construction site, the guy you talk to at the restaurant, vice versa. We like to make picks. We like to make predictions, and especially where more people can bet through sports books, or if you have your local bookie, whatever, you want to make picks, whether the spread, whether the money line, vice versa. Focus here. We're going to just focus on it, essentially the money lines. But the way I thought of us making our picks going into this week, we're going to split it up into categories, and that's what it is: upsets, whimpers, and thrillers. So the three of us are going to pick a game this week that we expect to see an upset, where we are going to pick the underdog to go over a huge favorite or a slight favorite or whatever. But ultimately, we're going to pick an upset. We're going to pick a whimper, a game that doesn't seem competitive, that doesn't seem interesting at all, and a game that might be flat out boring. And it's true. Nothing is worse than a boring football game. So we could pick the winner of that boring matchup there. And then we'll pick a thriller. Two highly contested football teams, two teams we expect to play their ass off, to play their hearts out, to play blunt force football, and ultimately entertain us and inspire us and bring good vibes. And we're going to pick a matchup where we think it will ultimately be a stellar, awesome game and be a thriller and be such a fun watch. So let's start this tradition. Upsets, whimpers, and thrillers. Let's start with the upsets. Gentlemen, I think the New Orleans Saints are going to upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady is only 4-5 against the Bucs throughout his entire career. The Saints really look like they got something going, especially having a healthy Michael Thomas. Jameis Winston doing great, being both a mobile quarterback and having legit weapons. And then this defense that is almost not getting the recognition that they deserve, especially adding people to their secondary like the Honey Badger. And then, you have a stellar pass rush for that team. I think the Bucs are going to have a tough game in the Super Bowl. And I say you pick the money line and have the Saints take over Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Alex, did you have the same upset?
Yeah,
from
yeah.
your animated from your animated body language right there.
Yeah. But I haven't looked at the if I'm gonna have to, pick a backup on the line here. I'm actually gonna go with the Miami upsetting Baltimore in Baltimore.
Okay.
I think that this team is, like you said, Bryan, is red hot right now. Well, you guys both said for that matter. They're gonna ride this wave going into Baltimore. I think they have a few questions to answer for the Ravens, coming off of an easy win against the Jets. I think they take advantage of that time off for granted going home. And I think that game's going to be really close and contested right down to the wire.
And one thing to make clear, the Buccaneers are 2.5-point favorites against the Saints this week. And then for Bryan's upsets right here.
So,
and then right here, the spread is 3.5-point favorites for the Ravens.
Yeah, 3.5. Yep.
So for my upset, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks upset the -8.5 49ers.
Boy.
Because if they could beat Denver, they could beat the 49ers easily. And in my eyes, and Gino, we trust right now, there's something cooking up there in that misty air of Seattle. And I think it's time that we see a little craziness with these Seattle Seahawks. Got a lot of potential on offense. The defense is young, but they look good. If they can game manage, with Geno Smith and run the ball with Penny. I think they're going to make it interesting and pull off a field goal victory.
All right, I respect it.
23-20.
I think you're drinking
Okay.
that Kool-Aid, bud.
Sometimes, listen, I have basically, as a Cowboy fan now, I have no hope. I go to the next team that has somewhat hope, and I want to see Geno Smith do well since he got punched in the face a few years back.
You want to see NFC cannibalism. I got
Yep.
you. Fair enough.
All right, let's talk about our whimpers, games that we think are going to be boring to watch. So here's what I have for my first whimper of this season. I think the Steelers and Patriots are going to be a boring game. It seems that everybody else with the hands up in the air feels the same way. So we can all add to this conversation. For me, as the Patriots could not keep up with a stellar defense in the Miami Dolphins, can they do the same against a Steelers team that did produce 4 turnovers against Joe Burrow? I just think that was a fluke game for them. I don't think, and especially with TJ Watt being injured, this team will not exactly produce a crazy threat against Mac Jones, who we don't know is 100% healthy either. The run game doesn't look like it's anywhere close to being what it can be for the Patriots. And then when we have the Steelers, who are still trying to figure out what they have we can see what the Steelers have with their offense. Najee Harris is injured. Mitch Trubisky didn't really impress me or doesn't seem to impress anybody in week 1. And I just think that for two teams that used to be an insane rivalry, especially in the playoffs, this is now an era where both teams are not as good as they once were. But it could hopefully just lead to hilarious Mike Tomlin sots at the end of the week. I think it's going to be the whimper this week. Do you guys feel the same way from all the hands up in the air and stuff like that? Definitely add to it.
Exactly the same. I just don't even want to watch the game. It's a waste of air time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the only other game I would add to it, sorry, Matt, is the Giants-Panthers game that just seems unwatchable on TV, on paper. So, but no, yeah, I mean, like, I think TJ Watt's questionable too for that game, right?
For most of the next 2 months, I think, with a torn pec.
Yeah, it's a bad injury.
Yeah. That's going to be even a worse defensive unit to watch as well. So.
And the Patriots are 2-point favorites there, which I'm actually kind of surprised, but who cares?
Yeah.
So the thriller this week, I think there are more options. So my thriller this week is going to be happening on Thursday night. The Chargers and the Chiefs. An amazing way to start your Amazon Prime season. And the way this is going to work, I'll lead it this week, and then we'll have Bryan and Alex, and then we will rotate throughout throughout the entire season. But after Patrick Mahomes scores 5 touchdowns and then Justin Herbert plays his heart out against the Raiders, I think this will really set the tone moving forward on who is the best team in this stellar division. I mean, the Chargers, especially with how good they look on the defensive side, and you have a returning Justin Jackson coming back. This is going to be a real test for Mahomes and his new receiving core, which is going to be a lot of fun there. And if their running game can continue to produce a bunch of yards and score as well, that's going to be fun as well. So ultimately, I feel this is the best matchup because it really tests who's going to be good and who's going to be bad moving forward, especially for the Chiefs, who looked so stellar against a weaker Arizona Cardinals defense. Can they do the same against what could arguably be a top 5 defense in the LA Chargers?
I absolutely. You go.
No, you go.
And also the spread on this game, Kansas City 4-point favorites.
Yeah, saw that. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I won't even make any comments on that game. I'll say my backup, though. If you're a real football fan, like you like the X's and O's, I think Washington versus Detroit might be a very football statistical, analytical. If you really like the nuts and bolts of football, that might be a thriller in itself. With just Dan Campbell and Ron Rivera is a very mirror, like looking at yourself in the mirror coach matchup. Like
that is
ground
football
and
guy
pound.
matchup of the week for sure.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? Like the football man's kind of game, ground and pound. You know, there should be 40 carries combined between both teams at least. You know, hard game, physical. I would expect a few injuries out of that game, so that might be fun to watch.
Wow, I'm surprised you guys didn't reach for this one, but I'm definitely going with the Minnesota Philly game. I think that one is the best game of the week. I would even argue Chiefs Chargers. And the only reason I say that is not because of the matchup; it's because they're going to be playing twice a year. So I think the Vikings Eagle has definitely more. Has more implications deep as we head into the playoffs because I have both teams winning their division, and I think that there's a lot of things we're going to find out about both teams and how good they really are in the power ranking. So
Yeah, and also I forgot to mention, I think when it comes to the Whimpers, we're going to have the Steelers win their money line, and for this, I think the Chiefs will defeat the Chargers at home for theirs.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree.
All right. Well, gentlemen, hella great time as always. Give yourselves a round of applause. I will see you both next week as we cover week 2 of the NFL season, and we're going to have a toast up to good times ahead. Any other final words from the both of you?
Pray for the Cowboys. I hope it ends quick.
Gentlemen, enjoy Thursday night and let's have a great weekend.
Nothing but. And you know what? Go Giants to Daniel Jones. Let's get 2-0. That'd be great. I just have to throw that in there. All right, gentlemen.
Send Dave good dance moves. Come on.
In Dave Ball we trust. All right, gentlemen. I will see you next week. Have a great night.
Have a good night.